Both my parents are teachers, as I've said in the past, and my dad started teaching in 1963, the year I was born, and my mom started teaching in 69, the year I went into the first grade. And I remember my mom telling me sort of the story of her first day as she was preparing to go into school. And so before she went, she asked my father for advice. And the advice he gave her was really quite simple. Don't hear what you're not intended to not hear. And it was probably in many ways the best advice my father could ever have given my mother, because quite frankly, she was going to teach in junior high, and let's be really honest, junior high kids and even high school kids can have a tendency of saying things without really thinking about what they're saying. It's not really directed at you, but you just happen to be there. And so my father's advice basically was, don't hear it. And through the years, as my mom had said, it saved her a lot of aggravation. Seeking advice in our life is just so important, particularly as we're entering into new situations, new circumstances. We're not always sure what to do. We're not really sure how to react. And so we need help in figuring it out. And the great thing is, God has actually done that for us. He's given us the advice we need. And it's called the Bible, the Scriptures. As Ecclesiastes tells us, there's nothing new under the sun. No matter what is happening in your life right now, no matter what you are experiencing, no matter how you are experiencing it, quite frankly, it's happened before. In some form. Maybe not exactly the same way what you're dealing with, but something close enough. And God has addressed it. As we struggle in really trying to live out our life, we can find a lot of great advice right up front. One of my favorite stories is the story of Eli and Samuel, where Samuel and Eli are asleep in the temple. Samuel's 18 years old, Eli's like 81. And Samuel, for the first time, hears the call of the Lord, but he doesn't know what it is. And so he goes and wakes up poor Eli, and he does this 3 times. And each time, Eli, you can almost hear the exasperation in his voice of being woken up, until he finally realizes what's going on for Eli, and he gives him the perfect advice. Next time you hear that call, simply say, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And that's great advice for us, because the reality is God is talking to you. He's talking to you all the time. But we have to kind of remind ourselves of that truth. And just saying that simple line each day, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." No better advice than that. Or the psalmist, who tells us, as God speaks through him, "Be still and know that I am God." One of the hardest things we have in life is to simply slow down. It's to sort of stop and really pay attention. Our life gets so chaotic, we get so overwhelmed, that we feel lost, we feel abandoned, we feel forsaken. All we have to remember is the advice from the psalmist. Be still and know that I am God. when we can quiet ourselves down, when we can sort of push away the storms, the distractions, it is there that we can find God in the midst of our brokenness. It's the story of the wedding of Cana. It's one of my favorite stories. Mary comes to Jesus and says, they're out of wine, and Jesus responds, well, why is this my responsibility? And I love what Mary says in that moment. She ignores what Jesus said and simply says, do whatever he tells you. Again, what great advice. No matter what the situation we find ourselves in, that should always be our response. Understanding what Jesus is telling us to do. And that's simply all we do. That really is the response for every moment in our life. Do whatever he tells you. As we look through the scriptures and these and so many other ways, I could literally just spend hours just going through what the scriptures teach us and what they're helping us to understand and how we're called to live our life. That's the power of the scriptures. That they still speak to us today and can still direct our life. They can give us the best advice possible, no matter what the situation we find ourselves in. We just have to be open to hear what God is trying to speak to us through the scriptures. May you truly open up to what the scriptures are trying to say to you. May you truly open up to what it is God wants you to hear. May you truly turn to God for the advice that you need. God bless.